Rebecca did tell me that she had some slides as well.
Okay, that's fine. If she wants to show them, that's cool. Kind of treating this as more of a roundtable type of discussion, to where we just kind of.
That's what I told her.
Yep.
We will get started here in a few minutes. We will probably start a little bit after 9. So if you haven't already, if you could please take the survey that I'm sending out in the chat. This helps us get to know who is here with us today and what you are excited to learn about. And if you've already done the survey, then if you could please go check out our LinkedIn and our YouTube. We have some awesome tips and tricks and tutorials on Power BI, Power Platform, and much more. Good morning, Michael.
Hey, Ryder, how you doing? You're on mute.
Yep, sorry, I was muted. I'm good.
How you doing today?
Good.
Good deal. We'll wait a few minutes before we kick things off here. Looks like everybody's starting to file in at this point.
For anyone that just joined, I have a survey that I'm sending out in the chat that helps us get to know what you would like to learn about today. So if you could please take that, it takes a few seconds and we will be starting in a few minutes. And please check out the rest of the Collectiv Academy schedule. We have these trainings almost every Thursday, and we have them almost every Thursday for the next 2 months. So we have a ton of awesome content on Power BI, Power BI visualizations, Power BI for financial reporting, and much more. So take a look and sign up.
Hey, Rebecca, how you doing?
Hey, good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here. How are y'all?
Good. It looks like the sun is shining there. It is very bleak and gray here.
Yeah, yesterday was our bleak day, but yeah, but the heat is here in Texas, so there's that.
All right, we're gonna wait one more minute and we'll get started.
Okay.
For anyone that just joined, here is the last round to take the survey before we're gonna go over it and see what y'all want to learn about.
All right, so it's about 3 minutes after, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with today's Collectiv Academy session. So Audrey, thanks again for putting everything together. Good morning, everybody. My name is Greg. I'm a principal here at Collectiv. I'm going to be accompanied by a couple other individuals on the Collectiv crew today to help present the Power BI report show and tell. I'll introduce them shortly. Before we actually dive into the presentation, again, we have these every Thursday, the Collectiv Academy events. So if this is your first time, welcome. If you have not attended, we hold these every Thursday, everything around Power BI and FP&A best practices. So before we actually go into the actual bulk of today's session, just want to have a quick explanation of who Collectiv is and what we're all about. So we are a strategy and consulting firm based out of Chicago, Illinois, but we are 100% remote. We have over 120 consultants across North America, mostly in the US and some in Canada as well. We focus in a few different areas. So we help organizations all the way from strategy to implementation and support. So strategy meaning if you need help envisioning a Power BI rollout across your enterprise, implementation to actually putting in place projects, taking Excel reports, moving them to Power BI, and then supporting those projects at the end of the day. We help organizations not only with analytics, but we also help them with FP&A best practices. So if you were not aware or we have not attended any of our other calls, Power BI actually gives you the ability to budget, forecast, and plan from within the tool itself. So not only just visualizing the data, but actually giving you the capability to write back. So we help organizations by replacing those types of processes by using tools within Power BI and as such. So a couple other ways that we help organizations. So a lot of what you see within Power BI is more the visualization tool, but there's also a lot of plumbing that goes in behind the scenes. So a lot of the data storage, a lot of the data movement, that all revolves around, a lot of tools that we specialize in, like Microsoft Azure. So whether you're looking to use tools like, Azure Data Warehouse, Azure Database, Data Lakes, using Azure Data Factory to move data, those are all different services that we offer our clients and help them out along the way. So that is a little bit about Collectiv and a little bit about the different ways that we can help organizations. But that is not what today's call is about. Today's call is about a Power BI report show and tell. And this is really about you all that are listening in on the call. So today, what we're really going to focus on is showing you some of the reports that, we have collected and have built, showing you more or less examples of different things to hopefully, get your kind of mind turning of different ways that you can actually build reports inside of your organization. So it's kind of more of a roundtable discussion. So I'm going to start off, and then I'm going to hand it over to a couple of individuals on the Collectiv crew. One is Rebecca, who you can see on the call here. The other is Ryder. Ryder, do you mind coming on camera real quick to kind of showing everybody who you are?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ryder. I joined Collectiv I think around August when I first graduated from my master in San Francisco and been working with Greg mostly on creating some reports for Collectiv.
Great. Thanks, Ryder. And then we also have Rebecca on the call. Rebecca, do you mind introducing yourself quickly?
Yeah, sure. My name is Rebecca. I'm a business intelligence specialist, Power BI guru. I started with the tool about 2.5 years ago from the bottom up, and I had an opportunity to take one of those mastering DAX classes, and that prevented me from banging my head on a wall. I definitely suggest trying to take one of those courses because it'll bring that level of understanding up a bit and make your life a little easier. So I'm really passionate about design and making useful dashboards that don't die. And so today I hope I can explain to you some of the tips that I use when I build my reports.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Rebecca and Ryder, for the quick introduction. So like I said, everybody, I'm going to kick things off, show you a couple examples that I like to show as far as some of the reports that we have built for other clients. And again, this is meant to be a very interactive session. So if you have questions, if you want to know like why we did something or how you would visualize another report, let us know. This is again to kind of give you ideas to utilize inside of some of your Power BI reports. So that said, I'm going to end the slideshow, stop sharing the screen. Actually, I'll just keep sharing it and open up your report. So Rebecca, can you confirm you can still see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, great. So the report that I'm going to start off with today is a report that I always like sharing because I think it does a couple different things. One, it's a very clean and visually pleasing report. It makes use of the wallpaper image in the background. So we created this for a manufacturing company that dealt with steel, and they looked at basically recycling and then manufacturing at the same time. And again, that's why you see the wallpaper back here that looks more of like a manufacturing environment. But then at the end of the day, we can actually we actually took the data and made it very meaningful with what the client was looking for. So in this report, a lot of things that you're going to see with a lot of the reports, at least that that I build, and it's very consistent across the rest of the collective crew. But whenever I build reports, I put my slicers across the top. That's just because I feel like that's a good place to put them. It makes your end users more familiar with how to actually utilize the reporting. It's all about, that adoption practice. So when they log into a report, they kind of know where they need to navigate to start slicing and dicing their data. Again, I'm not saying that when you build your reports, they have to be across the top. I think Ryder's going to show us in a little bit how you can actually hide some of these slicers through a slicer panel. But the way I build mine across the top. The whole point of this is whenever you start building your reports inside of your organization, consistency is key. And that way, when, if I log into a financial report, if I log into an inventory report, I'm going to know where to navigate to. My eyes are kind of accustomed to where to look for my slicers. On this report here, I'm a huge fan of the data matrix inside of Power BI, because I do think at the end of the day, individuals do like to see the raw data behind the reporting. So if you actually look in here, you can actually drill down. If you're not familiar with the Power BI matrix, it does give you the ability to drill up and drill down. And we also have indicators in here that actually show us what's making up the mass majority of the products. So you can see here the red indicator indicating our negative variances. We also have total sales and showing, what is making up that total sales amount. One of my favorite visuals to use inside of Power BI, if you're not familiar with it, is something called the decomposition tree. And that's what this visual is here. So right now the visual looks bare, but that's intentional. So right now we're looking at it's called the sold items breakdown. And we are looking at total sales amount. So right now we're around 29 million. But what I can do is if I click on that, what it does is it breaks that total sales out into 3 different areas by item group 1. So this is all based upon how I've set the visual up in the Power BI desktop, but it's all about that experience now for the end user, because now the end user can actually hit this plus icon here, and they can say, well, how does the steel manufacturing, what does this look like now? Maybe I want to break that out now by item group 2. So if I click on that, that breaks it out just to the products area. I can click on it one more time, go to item group 3. And now the item group 3 shows me what makes up my 16 million for that product section. So it gives you that ability to visually drill out into really what's making up these different areas of your overall total sales. So I think a very powerful tool. What's actually going on behind the scenes is Power BI is using a form of basically AI and ML to churn through the data and spit this information out for the visuals to come out, so that you don't actually have to create this static image. It gives you that ability to interact with your data and really kind of drill through and see what's actually making up between these. So again, very powerful tool. I think it's one of my favorite visuals on here. But that said, this was the report page that I wanted to show first. Again, we could probably go into every visual on here, but I really wanted to highlight the decomposition tree, and then I wanted to highlight the Power BI matrix, because those are the 2 that I really kind of gravitate towards. As time allows, I'll show you some other ones that we've built to get you some ideas. But that said, I'm going to hand it over to Rebecca now, who's going to show some of a report of hers, and then we'll just kind of go around the room. And at any time, if you have any questions, please let me know, and we'll stop. If you want to know how we did something or what's possible, let us know, and we'll answer them. So Rebecca, do you mind taking over?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right, thank you so much. Yeah, so for my demo, again, my name's Rebecca. I'm a Power BI analytics strategy consultant. I specialize in business intelligence tools. And one thing I wanted to start with is what to consider when you're building. So if you're in a role where people in your company are coming to you to build a report or a dashboard, these are the questions that I like to ask them. I believe it is a very important part of the analyst's role is to ask these important questions. If we simply just made what we were asked to make, one, you do have to do that sometimes, but two, you really do want to dig down and ask some important questions because you want to make sure your dashboards are useful and that they answer the questions that your users need to answer or to investigate. So one, the first step would be to ask who that user is. And if you can talk to this specific person who will be using it, that's even better. Once you speak to them, get down into what's their purpose. What are the questions that they need to answer? Do they need to know, the high-level KPIs of the, the numbers they need to maybe report to their boss or to their team, etc., as well as what's their use case? Because some reports actually are part of a workflow. They might need to be have action items after looking at this report. So what are the specific workflows? What's the team? Is it to review other people's performance, etc.? So really identify that use case and the specific question that will be answered from your report. And then some of the features that I like to include in some of my dashboards are, is this an exploratory board or is it a static board? So do I want to be able to investigate the question or do I just want to know the answer right away? Because, like Greg has shown, with the decomposition tree, that allows for investigation, exploration. You can go the high route, see where all of your sales are, or you could go the low route, see where none of the sales are, and maybe that's an area where this company would like to improve. And then there's this design technique. I like to call it the ladder. So whether you go high level or low level, you want to be able to walk up the ladder to take a look at your data from up high.
Certo, vai, immagino.
I believe
Good.
someone has their mic on.
Go ahead and mute them.
There we go. Okay. So again, back to the ladder. Sorry about that. Be able to take from a high perspective, what does the data look like, maybe to an executive or to a higher up in the company, and then allow them to drill into the details towards that lower level to the granularity. This can help different users utilize that dashboard. Some don't necessarily need all that detail, but it does allow people to see a bit behind the numbers. Again, what Greg was showing, people do appreciate seeing the numbers behind the big targets. The other part is the design. Is you want to make sure your dashboards look and feel professional. It's actually really important because it allows your users to trust the data. There is a lot of design techniques that say that when things are not parallel or not lined up perfectly, or title fonts are all different, people don't trust it as much as they would if it looked clean and lined up pretty well. So if you have the ability to design well, it can actually help with your adoption for your reports. And then obviously the most important thing is data quality. If you're showing incorrect numbers, no one's going to use that dashboard. So please do make sure that you add a step into your process where you are validating the data with the user or with the people who know what those numbers are supposed to be. And so now I'm going to walk you through this utilization dashboard that I've created. It's pretty simple, but ultimately it is for the use case of, for example, a regional manager has a list of team members, and they work billable hours. They track every one of their hours, similar to like a consultant. And so I have regions of my company where different people are working different hours. And so I want to make sure that my team is, one, billable to a certain extent, based on our targets up here at the top. And then I also want to take a look at the trends over time, which is what this middle chart is. And if I would like, so for example, if maybe I'm not the regional manager, but I am the, COO, I would like to take a look at which one of my regions is doing better than the other. Obviously, we can see Canada's really far down on the billable target. They're not doing too hot. So this is a way that we can also see, more user detail specifically for Canada. That's the benefit of Power BI, is it's quite dynamic, and it'll filter your charts between each other. Some of the design techniques I've used here that I want to point out is the rounded edges of the report. So all of them are rounded to the same degree. Specifically, my filters I have an edge of a different color. They're all equally spaced relatively. The color scheme is around the same. This stuff, again, as I've said, is a part of the adoption of making it look clean and professional. Now, in regards to the technique of high level to low level, so something that I want to show you is the drill through function of Power BI. So if you select, for example, Latin America, we can see the entire report switch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and drill through, because I want to see the specific time entries that all of my Latin American users were looking
Rebecca,
at. Yes.
We have a question.
Okay.
How did you get the rounded edges?
That's a great question. Yes, so in Power BI, when you select, I guess I could show you. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. So I just came into edit for a second. But in Power BI, when you select your report or your visual, there's your data section, and then there's your formatting section. Under format, there's this border, and you can just turn that on. And I usually use 10. I like the look of 10, but you could even go up to like 20 or something and make it like super round and bubbly. Or you could just keep it at 0 and make it like a pointy edged chart. For some reason, my design, a lot of my dashboards go with 10 because I like the feel of it. It's a little less, I find it professional, but I also don't find it like too bubbly and exciting, because I think that's an important differentiation. I guess it depends on what you're building. The other thing is and it's very subtle, but the background, which to change the background, select nothing, go to the format, and you can change the page background color. So my background color is just this very simple gray, and my reports all have the same background, which is white, and the same border. And that's something that just really allows my dashboards to kind of stand out and look polished. And so, yeah, so this section that I just took you guys to, I hope that answers your question. The section that I just took you to is what we call a drill through page. And so specifically drill throughs, as you can see down here, it's actually a hidden tab. So let's go back to my utilization, my first one. So the tab that they come into the report is this first utilization demo page. And then when you drill through, you actually can't really see where that time entry is. I usually hide my drill through pages. It's simply a snapshot. You're simply drilling through. The ultimate next step would just to simply go back to the utilization page. So this is just our breakdown. We see that, Thomas and Daniela have the most right now, making up 50% of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. So they're working pretty hard, right? They're holding 50%. This is a really nice visual. It's called, I believe, the tree map. Yeah, tree map. Yep. Some people hate on pie charts. You can totally use a pie chart if someone asks you to use one. But I actually love the tree maps instead because it actually visually shows you um, the percentages just visually. And so I think that's a really awesome technique. And not a lot of people use them out there in, like the PowerPoint world. So it can probably impress those users for you. And then of course, here are the details, for each of the clients, each of the projects and every day. So I could, if I was a project manager, I could come here and see each of those billable hours. I also could export, which is an awesome feature in Power BI. Probably go back to the reading view.
So Rebecca, there was a question that came through from Sherry, and I just replied to her, but she was curious on how we actually hide the pages.
Okay.
And
yeah,
I told her you can just simply right click on the page and click hide, maybe you can just kind of talk through that.
absolutely. Yeah. So the little eyeball being X'd out, that means it's hidden. And when you right click, you can click hide or unhide. I do this in a lot of similar, so for example, this page behind the scenes, this is a tool tip, which I'll get into in just a second, but that one's hidden too.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's one more question from Jeremy. What are the advantages of making your reports on app.powerbi.com versus desktop app? So if you don't mind, I'll just take that one real quick.
Go ahead.
So Rebecca has made this report in the Power BI desktop, and she's published it up here to the Power BI service, which is the app.powerbi.com. So she's not if she was going to actually make edits to this, she's doing it quickly inside of the service. But best practice is to do it inside of the desktop app and then republish up. So she's just showing you quickly without having to get into the desktop how you can make some of these changes, Jeremy. But really, what you should be doing is making these changes in your desktop application and then publishing it up to here. Power BI allows you to edit it inside the service as a kind of a very quick and easy fix. But then you kind of lose those changes in your versioning control.
Yeah, correct. So for version control, definitely stick to the desktop app because that's the one you're going to be publishing to the service if you're doing that. But you can do small modifications. The single difference between editing in desktop and online service is you can't edit DAX measures. If it's the production file, like if it's your dev file, you cannot edit any DAX measures on the service online. So if I need to make some calculation changes, for example, my billable utilization, that's a calculated field. It's taking total billable hours and dividing it by total hours worked, right? That's a calculated field. I can't, if I need to modify that for some reason, I can't. I'd have to open up my desktop file to do so. So, yep, that's a really good question, and that comes with working through the procedure with your internal team on one who can. Obviously, it protects your measures from being messed with, but also it's a good point to keep in mind because if you do make changes on the service, you won't be able to. You'd have to kind of like re-download or just like re-update your app, and you don't want to work on things twice. So, so my last feature I want to show you guys is the tooltip, and then I think I can pass it off. And that is going to be on my second page. So we go back to utilization, and my page is here. All right. So the second step the second piece of information here that I have is the project status data. And so this, I've built something like this before for the purpose of something that you can send to a client potentially, or as a project manager, I can see my total budget, total spend, and the budget remaining in a percentage or a dollar for my specific project. So if you are building something like this could be huge for a project manager because instead of getting an Excel sheet and creating all these calculations and making it, especially in regards to all of these specific tasks that need to be worked on, so long as the data source has the budget input, you can make the calculations for the spend, the hours, the invoice to be billed, etc. And so what I have here is this nifty little thing called a tooltip. I definitely like to use these because it allows you to use, you're not relying on the real estate of the page, but you can use this, temporary pop-up to show additional information specific to a visual or even to, something over here. So it's working here. So I can see quickly that project 1026 has a 54% budget remaining. You could, another feature of Power BI, which I use personally, and I've created personally for certain executives, is the export function. So a lot of the time people need to show these dashboards to people. One, you could allow them to show it, obviously, if they would like to, but they could also export it to PowerPoint, which is pretty awesome. So basically what Power BI does is it takes a snapshot as if we would ourselves, and it immediately, it just has a quick button for you to click, exports it to PowerPoint, and you have your slides. And this is a really good, once you understand that concept, you can think, oh, I could probably help build a reporting pack for my team. Everyone's always trying to build PowerPoint reports. And so this might be a nice way to reduce the amount of time. And that's where the value of an analyst comes in from. One, we are presenting more data to people and allowing them to see more insights. But if we can save people time, we're doing our job right. And so as you go up the hierarchy, so executives and managers, etc., they don't have as much time as we do. And if you can save them time for wrangling the data, designing dashboards, designing PowerPoint slides, you will be valuable in your role. And so that's something that I've learned that I wanted to pass down to you. Maybe like one last visual that I really like, which is a new feature of Power BI, are these zoom tools. So you can turn these on for a handful of visuals right now. This one is the scatter chart. So I have, all you need is three different fields. Right now I have budget and I have remaining. And then I have my project IDs and I've put them into a plot. And what I could do is if I was only interested in my high dollar budgets, I could look at those. So I don't have too many, but I do have two, my most expensive projects. Or if I wanted to take a look at the tail end of my budget or my smaller projects, I can just kind of slide all the way down to maybe like that 50K range. And even better is I can slide down to maybe, these are projects that have 20% remaining budget. So these are the ones that we got to make sure that they finish up on time, we don't go over budget, etc. So this is a nice feature. And of course, with Power BI, you can always click. And, well, that's because I have a filter on right now. So if I click on 110, it'll show me, 1110, 1120. Here is my 1120 details. And yeah, so this is that wraps it up. Are there any other questions that have come in?
I don't believe so, but this was really great, Rebecca. Thanks for presenting this. Very valuable. A lot of great. You made a ton of great points, and I'm sure at least if everyone on the call at least takes one of these, tips and tricks away from what you've done, I think they're going to greatly excel in the report building. A couple things I just want to point out that Rebecca made some great points on. Obviously, the visualizations, the tool tips, all those were great. But again, about the cleanliness and the layout, when we were talking about borders and spacing, how things are basically evenly set out. Just how we were talking about borders earlier. One thing that came to mind is, they all have the same border. There's not some that are no zero radius. They all have that 10% radius on there. And again, that's that look and feel, makes it look consistent across the report, helps with adoption, helps with usage. So all of those things come into play whenever you're creating these reports. So all very good points that she has made. And if we get some time here after we hand the screen over to Ryder, I think we can dive back into some of these reports as well. But if there are any questions, let us know. and we'll happy to answer. But with that said, I think we'll go ahead and hand it over to Ryder. So Ryder, do you want to present your screen and start presenting one of your reports?
Sure. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share my whole screen right now. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Yes, I see that.
Okay.
Okay. And so, like Rebecca said, design is very important for some of the clients. And I think with the end users in mind, whatever you're trying to design has to be visually attractive and also like look organized and kind of look like a same format with the text and the sizes and such. So the work I'm doing for Collectiv, I'm pretty new to Power BI. Before that, I was using a lot of Tableau. And so to compare Power BI and Tableau, Power BI is way more dynamic and is more flexible in a way that it's using its filters. So this dashboard that I created, this is for the alcohol sales in Iowa over the year of 2019 and 2018. One thing you notice is like there's no top bar where there was all the filters and things like that because everything is kind of hidden within this filter pane. This was brought up. The idea was brought up by Greg to kind of create this filter pane, which I thought was super cool. I never actually done something like this, so it's also was a very great learning experience for me. So from here, you can select different year, and obviously everything else on this dashboard will change according to that. On this filter pane, you can add anything. This is including year and quarter, county and city. You can also add regions if you like to, anything like that. So again, this is created using bookmarks. So whenever you're designing this, it's a lot of hide certain visuals and show certain visuals. So when you switch back and forth between bookmarks, just be careful because it's actually quite annoying to do so. So from here,
and I think just to add to Ryder's comment, everybody, what he's referring to is to build in that functionality where you can click on that icon and it hides or unhides that filter pane. It's like he said, it's using the bookmarks functionality inside of Power BI. So it can be a little bit more cumbersome to build those in, but once you build it in, the user and basically the user interface and the user experience is very valuable. But it is something that you need to practice and get used to because there are a lot of different things you need to do whenever you build in a bookmark as far as saving, making sure things operate how they should be. So a great tool to utilize, but just takes a little bit more time to build because of all the extra steps involved with it. But I just want to make that clear what Ryder was portraying there. But Ryder, go ahead and continue on.
No worries. Yeah, so if you really want to show how the bookmark works, I would recommend download this file and take a look at the bookmark field. So here you have the top store sales and profit margin. This is what I like about Power BI because in Tableau, I don't think you can do this. So you don't have to set up any filter fields at all. It's just automatically kind of like all these fields are pretty popular for you. And same thing for sales here. And also added this button right here to revert everything. So it's not working on the app right now, and it will bring up this filter, but basically it's there to reset all the filters that you set. Another functionality is I added this left bar right here. So once you go to the second icon, which is the revenue breakdown, you're in another view of the dashboard. And now I added everything on the left here for basically what I call the scorecard. So this is ArcGIS map, which give you a little bit more flexibility to add other layers on top of the map, like you see on here. you see the population density and per capita income. These can be set up in Power BI itself. So we recommend using this map if you need that layer of complexity. So what you do is you would go into layer list and you will be able to add other layers on top of this. So what's cool about this is you can actually select multiple of these bubbles using the rectangle select tools. Just trying to click it. Let's see if you only care about this region. Everything here is going to change according to what you selected, and also the demographic information. And then you go to one of Greg's favorite visual, which is Decomposing Tree. Again, this is very useful whenever you need to look at each category in like what falls under it, what vendor, and then item description. Obviously, when you switch to other items, this is going to change as well. And then I have store address here showing that what store sold the most. And everything here falls within this filter list here. So this is your main filter, and this is your secondary filter in a way. Another thing I added was this Q&A button, which is toggled by just clicking on any of these pages. And now you can see some of the insights that Power BI automatically does for you for key influencer. And this is a Q&A where you can ask Power BI for any kind of question, and then they will give you a basically an analysis, like a quick analysis of what your data look like. So you can toggle this off and on.
So if you stay on that page for a second, Ryder.
Yep.
Yeah, just to kind of illustrate a little bit about that, about these visuals. So these are Power BI visuals that are pretty well, they're out of the box, right? So Power BI creates this, if you're not familiar with it, it creates these questionnaire visuals to where, just like Ryder's saying, it's going to say, show me the top store countries by sales goal difference. Or you can actually hit that. I think if you hit that little icon button there, it's going to say, give me some other suggestions. So if you hit that little icon button to the bottom right of that box, the very top.
You mean this?
Okay, sorry. With some of these visuals, I think it gives you suggestions of questions to ask it. But nonetheless, the point I'm trying to get across here is that these are not visuals that, you know, Ryder has created. What he's done is he's incorporated these basically drag and drop features in the Power BI, and then Power BI does the work for you to do the analysis on your data. So you can see as he's typing here, it's giving him some suggestions based upon what's in the data set to present different information. So very powerful tool that as he's working through this Power BI is saying, what do you want to look at here? So it's churning through the data and making suggestions for you. So very powerful in that sense.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on that, the only thing to set this up correctly is to name your fields like as clean as possible. So some of them you need to like know that what the field is called, so that Power BI kind of know where to point it to. Because I put store city instead of city in here, so I have to type store city instead.
That was going to be my question, Ryder. Did you spend the time in desktop adding the extra naming conventions for those fields, or did you just did you do any modification there?
Yeah, so if you see like for category name or store city, you have to name your field appropriately. So whenever you're trying to type it here to find it, then you go to the right field basically. Because then, for example, if I put top sales difference, like I don't remember exactly what that field is.
Right.
So it could be like very difficult to understand what that is. But it is a field in like Power BI desktop that was created. So yeah, just a tip for everyone who's trying to use this Q&A. pane.
And that can be definitely helpful with organizations that refer to, like I know some companies use like annually reoccurring revenue, so ARR or ACV, annually. I don't know what ACV is, but they use different terminologies for basically the same measure. But you could input more text with the different namings that your company uses, so that when an executive or somebody in your company tries to use this question filter, it's adapting to their language, not necessarily like the field name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
correct.
that's good. That's a really good feature. I love this feature.
So there was a question that came through from Lee. It says, can the creative visual then be made permanent? And I believe the answer to that is no. But if that is a visual you like, I would encourage to basically understand what is being made behind that visual and then just create it. You would then just create it inside of Power BI and add it to a new page. And the other thing I just want to mention about what Ryder has put together here. So if you notice, I can show you some of like the report that I had earlier. A lot of the reports that we have pages on them. This one is using extensively bookmarks to basically navigate between pages. So in Ryder's example, as you see, I mean, he's using a ton of bookmarks here. As he goes to the first picture, he navigates back to that revenue overview. If you click on that, this is actually just navigating through pages for him. And again, it's all about that user experience. So you're not actually going to the left pane there and clicking on a drop down for an actual page. It's staying here within the report. And again, it's all about that user experience of how you want your users to interact. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just how you feel is the best bet for the report that you've built. But again, all that is using the bookmark functionality.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think most of my work here at Collectiv is also I was asked to create basically instructional or educational videos for new features in Power BI. And I think it's very useful just to learn about new features. And because I did not know about bookmarks before for Power BI, and this is one of the cool things that I learned. So I guess my advice is just keep your open mind and keep learning new things because they keep adding it. And so, yeah.
Right. And then, Ryder, would you kind of explain, because I really like the visuals you have on this page, basically what we call the card visuals. So many of you that are on the call, you may be familiar with the card visuals or the KPIs, but what Ryder has done is he's combined a couple different visuals into one to kind of make one KPI looking card. So those across the top, if you look at percent sales goal reached, in the middle there, those are two different visuals that if you look at it, you might think like, oh, that's just one visual combined and you're doing some formatting, but essentially it's two visuals that he just has grouped together to make it look a little bit more like one visual.
Yep. Is there a question on the chat? I can't really see the chat right now.
Yeah, one question, and I think Rebecca just answered it, so thanks, Rebecca. There was a question about how do you add shadows to that, to the actual, to your left matrix. They said it looks like there's a shadow. Is that something that you did, or how did you do that?
Yeah, that was intentional. I was trying to, this is, again, going back to design, like I want to separate these two boxes from these three on the top, and like using shadows is one of the tricks that I use quite a lot. Again, it's very based on your personal taste. You can remove it, you can add it, whatever you or your client would want.
And that is done by basically going to the same format panel that Rebecca was in earlier. And there's just a section called shadow, and you simply turn that on or off.
Yeah.
To remove the shadow, Ryder, do you mind just going to the edit section of this to
remove it?
I think it's different inside the app. If you go to the far right, I think that pencil icon.
I think this is editing the app.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
It's just edit button, right?
then if you go to the, yep. So to simply turn it off, there's a
there's a box. There's an option called shadow. You can toggle it on and off.
Yep.
Oh, there's another question. The question is about the ArcGIS visual, and if that is a paid visual or is it a free feature? It's a custom visual, right?
I think so.
The map one that you use.
The ArcGIS is free.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but there are paid versions of it. So there are certain features that come free out of the box, but then some features essentially are you still have to pay for. So it's kind of like it gives you a little bit the basics, and then if you want to go further, like uploading your own layers into the, I believe uploading your own layers and things like that, you have to pay for.
Just to go a little bit deeper into the bookmark, since I'm on here. The way that it works with these icons or buttons is that you're using action to go to, so each one of them will do a different type of action. This one is page navigation. So that's when if I click on this icon, it'll go to another page. And this is what was used to kind of create this dashboard. Other things would be to, like this one, this would have a different action, which is a bookmark action would toggle on and off the different bookmark that I did. Like going back to what Greg said, like this is how many bookmark I had in order for this to work. And so if you get used to these features, it's actually quite cool. Yeah. Is there another question?
So Elmira had a question. Is there a possibility to automate reporting in a way to feed source files with new data and to have an updated report? Yes, there definitely is. So how to automate reporting, basically to feed a source file with new data and update. Yeah, so Power BI gives you the ability to actually schedule automated refreshes. So if right now, for example, this report that Ryder has open would be fed by a source. That could be SQL, that could be Excel, that could be, Oracle. It could be any type of data set that Power BI can connect to. Then if you want to go ahead and set that up on an automated refresh, you do that inside of the Power BI service. And Ryder, if you don't mind, I'll just take the screen back and show how that can actually be done. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and dive back into Power BI and we'll go to the sales workspace. But if we wanted to look at Ryder's report, I would simply go to my data set, which is called Sales Scorecard, and I can in here I can actually set up data refreshes. And what I would do is I can schedule a refresh. Right now, this is a static report, so there's no refresh. But if I would actually put in my data source credentials for this report, I could schedule the time that I want that data to continuously pulling in new information. So that can all be done with inside of Power BI reporting. So hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, just go ahead and type in the chat what other questions you might have. There was a question about using Charticulator to make core diagrams, diverging bar charts, spiral bar charts. I've seen it. I've seen it. I personally haven't. Rebecca or Ryder, have either one of you used Charticulator? I'm
currently learning it.
That's new to me. I have not.
We should have a marketing video coming out on how to use it, but basically in 4 words, Charticulator is a no-code custom visual application, and you can basically build, like an architect almost, your own graphs. And so, for example, like the spiral graph, the really cool looking spiral graphs that you see out there, that is a bar chart that is in a circular pattern. And so you can actually make those. There's a ton of videos on YouTube right now. Collectiv will have one out soon. My voice might be there.
So there's 2 questions that came in. I'm going to answer those quickly. I know Sadhana, I think Ryder may have addressed your question in the chat. If I didn't answer it, please let us know. Jeremy, you had a quick question about the Power BI gateway connection for scheduling and refresh. The only time you need to use a Power BI gateway connection is if your data is on-premise. So if you have an on-prem SQL server or database, then you do have to have a way to basically sync those files up. So if it's on-prem, and then you need to basically have a gateway, or for example, if it's on a VM, you would need a gateway. But otherwise, if it's some type of cloud solution, there's usually a tunnel or a pipeline that Power BI can connect to it as long as you have that information. I want to jump to, because we're starting to get to the end of our time. Diana had a question, and she had a question about basically putting together best practices for glossary, measures, etc. And I think what you might find useful is some visual tooltips that we have inside of Power BI. So let me see if this brings me to the right one. That's the wrong one I was looking for. Let's see here. If I go to this education analysis report, there are some visualizations that we have built in here that actually shows you information regarding the metrics that are on the page. So for example, if you see this information icon, what we have done is if we click on this information icon, what this does is this shows us information of what's actually making up those system test scores. And we've done this before for, other types of measures. So you could do maybe, how do you count schools? What's the criteria for that? You can put those information icons there. Other things we have done is this icon might actually navigate them to another page, like an ending page of the report that gives you all of the definitions of the different metrics or how you calculated things. One other item that you can do with Power BI, it's not built into this Power BI app, but when you actually take all of these reports and you publish them up into what is called a Power BI app, you can actually include documentation with that. And in the past, we have included things like Word documents, PDFs, Excel files that can all be utilized for information regarding the types of reports and metrics that are inside of here. So hopefully that gives you an idea of some options. If not, let me know. I'm happy to talk about that a little bit further. Sadhana had a question about, is the Bookmark a free tool readily available in visualizations? And the answer is yes. Bookmarks are things that are readily available. So here, this is the Power BI desktop. If you can see my screen, you can basically, it's just basically a different view. So if I would go to a view here and you see bookmarks, this report actually uses a wide array of bookmarks to do basically light and dark theming. So as I click on this, you're going to see how this produces a dark themed report, and you can see how it's switched to my bookmarks. So again, that's all available out of the box. And
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a step up. That's like a whole nother, people love dark mode.
Yeah, definitely. This is another, another way to use bookmarks. Again, you're kind of creating the report a couple different times, but if it's about the user experience and getting adoption, it should definitely be worth your time putting it into play. Great questions, though. We got 3 minutes left. What other questions do we have? Or did we miss any? I'm not sure. I've been kind of monitoring some of the chat. I don't know, Rebecca or Ryder, if there's anything that I may have missed. Or any additional comments, Rebecca, that you may have, or Ryder.
Yeah, in regards to Python, Jeremy's questions on like Python visuals. Yes, you can make pretty advanced charts using that code. However, there's limitations with it, and so that's something that you would need to consider if you're going to be putting them into Power BI. Limitations like the interaction between visuals, that is not supported with a Python visual, which is one of the main and very cool features of Power BI. and the visuals that they provide. So that's just one takeaway. I've never used it though.
Yeah, I think what Rebecca said, basically to kind of summarize it. So like if you want to like use the filter across different visuals, you probably have to write extra code for that. And it could be kind of complex. But yeah, I use Python with Tableau, and it's a mess. It's not pretty.
Three most important visuals one should learn to make reports. It's a great question.
Most important.
I've got a strong opinion on that. Three most important visuals I would say are the bar chart, the line chart, and the KPI card, because you can tell a story with those. Those are we're showing all these different cool advanced features, but the simplest, all you have to do is tell a story with your visualization. So at the end of the day, a bar chart, but a bar chart or a line graph or a combined chart using both of those is just as valuable and provides just as much insight as some of these very visually pleasing reports. So again, it's what type of story is that report telling, is what I kind of always say. And then the KPI, and then the card values. Again, these are just card values in my mind. It's just giving you a quick snapshot of where you're at revenue wise, cost wise, patients, doctors, etc. Great context, everyone, though. Rebecca, any thoughts on what I just mentioned?
That's really good advice. Like I just wrote it down myself. But you're right. It's about telling the story and allowing them to drill. Like I said, the ladder analogy. Can you look at it from a high level, and can you drill down into it and walk back up the ladder? So those types of capabilities are really important.
Great. There was one more question, and I'm happy to stay on for another 5 minutes as people. I know we're at the end of our time, but if anybody needs to stay on, feel free to stay on, ask questions. So Sherry had a question on the school dashboard. How did you do the years across the top? Let me go back to the school dashboard so I remember what it looked like. Sorry, it takes a little while when my video is on to load up. Okay, so I think it's the years here. So if you're, Sherry, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the, slicers, but these are slicers here. And there's actually an option inside of, let's see if I have one of these on a report I have opened up. I don't believe I have one, maybe. Basically, you can change your slicers from vertical to horizontal inside of the format pane. So when you click on your slicer and you go to the format, it's going to give you the ability to either make it a horizontal slicer or a vertical. And horizontal will give it to you in the fashion that you were seeing on the education dashboard. Great questions, though, everybody. Really appreciate everyone's time and attention here today. If there are any questions, let us know. That does conclude today's presentation, though. Really appreciate Rebecca and Ryder taking the time to share their reports and some of their best practices when building reporting in Power BI. And appreciate everybody's interaction today with questions. So it definitely makes the event much more enjoyable when we have everybody on the call interacting. So that said, that is it. I'm going to hand it back over to Audrey to wrap things up, and we look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Thank you, everybody. We will be sending an email with some slides and also the recording of the presentation. So everyone should be receiving that later today. I also sent a link in the chat to check out the rest of the Collectiv Academy training schedule. We have them every Thursday at 9 a.m. CST, and we have a ton of great other sessions that y'all should come to. So sign up. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Ryder. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.